Hey Reddit. I'm torn to pieces and need some perspective on whether I'm the asshole or not. Here's the backstory. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Claire, 26F. Growing up, Claire and I were best friends, practically inseparable. But as we got older, things changed. Claire blossomed into the golden child, always the center of attention, always the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Me? I was the black sheep. I love my career, have a great fiancé, Jake, 31M, and prefer to keep a lower profile. My relationship with Claire has gotten strained over the years because, frankly, I started feeling like I was living in her shadow. But I never thought it would get as bad as it has. So, Claire has been dating this guy, Mark, 29M, for about 3 years. He's wonderful. Kind, attentive, funny, basically everything a girl could want in a partner. He's the kind of guy who remembers to send flowers just because and always makes sure Claire feels supported. I'll admit, I was a little envious at times because Mark seemed perfect. I thought Claire had hit the jackpot. Everything was great until it wasn't. 2 months before Claire and Mark's wedding, I was out to dinner with some friends when I saw Claire at the same restaurant with another man. At first, I thought it was someone she worked with, but then I saw her kissing this guy. My stomach dropped. It was clear she was cheating on Mark, and this wasn't some innocent mistake. They were holding hands, laughing, and acting very much like a couple. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I sat on this information for a couple of days. I didn't want to believe it. Maybe I was mistaken, maybe there was an explanation. But when I brought it up with Claire, she just shrugged and said, "Oh, that's Chris. He's an old fling. We just get together now and then. It's harmless." I was floored. She said it so casually, like cheating on Mark, this amazing guy, was no big deal. She even laughed and said, "Come on, you know everyone has their side pieces these days." I didn't know what to do. I was disgusted, but I didn't want to ruin her wedding. I tried to convince myself it wasn't my place to intervene. But after that conversation, I started noticing more red flags. Claire was constantly texting Chris, even sneaking out of family gatherings to take calls with him. She didn't care if people saw, it was like she thought she could get away with anything. Fast forward to the wedding day. Everything was set up to be perfect, beautiful venue, gorgeous dress, the whole fairy tale. I thought I could keep my mouth shut, but then, right before the ceremony, I overheard Claire talking to Chris on the phone. She said, "I'll miss you, baby, but don't worry. This is just for show. We'll be together after the honeymoon." I froze. She was planning to marry Mark and keep Chris on the side, like some kind of twisted backup plan. I couldn't let it happen. I just couldn't. I thought about how Mark had been so loving and devoted to her, how he had no idea the woman he was about to marry was deceiving him. When the priest asked if anyone objected, I stood up. My heart was pounding, my hands were shaking, but I said, "I object because Claire is having an affair and has been lying to Mark for months." Pandemonium. My mom screamed. Claire's face went pale as a ghost. Mark turned to Claire, looking like he'd been hit by a truck. He kept asking her if it was true, and she just stood there, speechless. Finally, she admitted it. She said, "Yes, I've been seeing Chris, but it doesn't mean anything. I love you, Mark." That just made things worse. Mark left the altar, and the wedding was called off. Here's where things get really messy. My family, especially my mom, is furious with me. My mom screamed at me in front of everyone, saying I ruined Claire's life and had no right to air her dirty laundry in public. My dad didn't say much, but I could tell he was disappointed. Claire, on the other hand, lost her mind. She yelled at me, calling me a jealous B*TCH who had always hated her. She said I only did it because I couldn't stand that she was getting married before me. Even Jake, my fiancé, thinks I went too far. He says I should have just talked to Mark privately and not humiliated everyone in front of all our family and friends. Now I'm torn. I thought I was doing the right thing, but maybe I should have kept my mouth shut and let Mark find out on his own. Did I destroy my sister's life for nothing? So, am I the asshole for exposing her affair at her wedding and blowing everything up? Top comments. U/Wadagrosma says, "Not the asshole. Claire did this to herself. Cheating is one thing, but doing it so blatantly and expecting to get away with it? No. Mark deserved to know, and you saved him from a lifetime of lies. If Claire's life is ruined, it's because she ruined it herself, too." U/Canary Inikage says it's not even about the wedding, Claire was living a double life. If she was so willing to lie and cheat now, what else was she going to do once they were married? You did the right thing, OP. Your family needs to wake up and stop enabling her. 3. U/Family Tangle, I don't know, OP. I get that you were trying to do the right thing, but a public wedding might not have been the best place to expose it. Mark definitely needed to know, but maybe you could have told him beforehand. It's a tough situation, but I'm leaning towards everyone sucks here. OP's response to comments, thank you for saying that. I keep second guessing myself, but hearing from people like you makes me feel like I did the right thing. Mark didn't deserve to be tricked into a marriage with someone who had zero respect for him. I couldn't just sit there and say nothing. 4. U/Canary Inikage, exactly. Claire acted like cheating was no big deal, and that's what infuriated me. I thought she'd at least be remorseful, but nope. She was planning to keep doing it even after the wedding. It was so messed up, and I couldn't let her drag Mark into it. 5. U/Family Tangle, I hear you, and I wish I'd had the chance to talk to Mark earlier. But I honestly didn't have solid proof until right before the ceremony. By then, it felt like my only option was to say something or let him marry her without knowing the truth. It wasn't ideal, but I couldn't stay quiet. Update 1, 2 weeks later, hey Reddit, I wasn't planning to post an update, but so much has happened that I feel like I need to. Things have spiraled way out of control, and now I'm even more confused about whether I made the right choice. After the wedding fiasco, Mark completely disappeared. He blocked Claire on everything, social media, phone, you name it. My family was in full meltdown mode. My mom refused to speak to me, and my dad just kept telling me how disappointed he was that I ruined Claire's big day. Meanwhile, Claire lost it. She's been telling everyone who will listen that I'm the reason her life is ruined and that I did it out of jealousy. She even told mutual friends that I'd always hated her and wanted to be the center of attention. Total lies, but she's playing the victim hard. But that's not even the craziest part. I found out through a mutual friend that Claire is still seeing Chris. She's been sneaking around with him, and she's still trying to get back together with Mark at the same time. She's been sending Mark these long, emotional texts saying she made a mistake and that she loves him and can't live without him. I don't know if Mark is responding or if he's ignoring her, but it's insane. She's basically trying to have her cake and eat it too. I've been debating whether to reach out to Mark and tell him what's really going on. On one hand, I feel like he deserves to know the full story, that Claire hasn't changed and is still seeing Chris. But on the other hand, I'm wondering if I've already done enough damage. Maybe I should stay out of it this time and let him figure things out on his own. What would you do, Reddit? Should I warn him or should I let it go? Comments. U/Guardiareert says stay out of it, OP. You did the right thing by exposing the affair in the first place, but Mark needs time to process and heal on his own. Update 2, 1 month later, I don't think you'll believe me, but this story is about to get even crazier. Buckle up, Reddit, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around what's happened in the past few weeks. If I thought things were bad before, I had no idea just how deep this rabbit hole would go. So, after my last update, I decided not to reach out to Mark. Most of you were right, he needed time to heal, and I didn't want to make things worse by inserting myself into the mess again. I figured things would calm down eventually, but boy, was I wrong. About 3 weeks ago, my family organized a small dinner at my parents' house. I was hesitant to go, considering my parents were still giving me the cold shoulder, and Claire had been avoiding me like the plague. But Jake, my fiancé, convinced me to go, saying it was time to patch things up. So, I agreed. What's the worst that could happen, right? We show up, and Claire is there, sitting across from my mom like nothing ever happened. She's acting all sweet, even laughing with my parents, like she hadn't been caught having an affair a month ago. I sat there quietly, trying to avoid any confrontation. Then, during dinner, my mom, who hadn't spoken to me since the wedding, drops this bombshell: Claire has some exciting news. I was expecting her to announce that she was moving in with Chris or something, but nope. Claire smiles and says, Mark and I are working things out. We're back together. I nearly choked on my food. What? She was still seeing Chris when I last checked, and now she's saying she's back with Mark. I couldn't believe it. How could he take her back after everything? I didn't say anything at the table, but I could feel my blood boiling. Claire had wormed her way back into Mark's life, and from the way my parents were acting, they were thrilled. As soon as dinner was over, I went outside to catch my breath, and who follows me? Claire. She saunters up to me, grinning, and says, "See? You couldn't ruin my life after all. Mark forgave me because he actually loves me. Unlike you, who can't even get married without trying to sabotage someone else's happiness." I snapped. I asked her straight up if she was still seeing Chris, and she just smirked and said, "Oh, don't worry about that. Chris and I have an understanding. He knows where he stands, and he's fine with it. It's not cheating if Mark doesn't find out, right?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell Mark everything, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Claire had him wrapped around her finger again, and he wasn't going to listen to me after taking her back once. So, I left the dinner furious, unsure of what to do next. Here's where it gets even crazier. Last week, Jake and I were at a local bar with some friends when I spotted Chris. I wasn't planning to approach him, but he spotted me and came over, looking a little drunk. He sat down at our table, completely unbothered by the fact that we hadn't spoken before, and just casually said, "So, you're the one who blew up Claire's wedding, huh?" Bold move. I was stunned. I asked him what he meant, and he went on to spill everything. Turns out, Claire wasn't just cheating on Mark with Chris, she was cheating on Chris too. Apparently, there's a third guy in the picture, someone Claire met through work. Chris told me that he found out a week ago and has been furious, but he hadn't confronted her yet because he wanted to see how far she'd take it. I was floored. This whole time, Claire had been lying to both of them, and now there was another guy involved? Chris told me he wasn't even that mad, just impressed at how good she was at juggling all her relationships. But here's the real kicker, Chris said he wasn't planning to tell Mark either. He actually liked the drama and figured it wasn't his problem if Mark was dumb enough to take her back. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Chris was enabling her, and Claire had fully descended into some sort of sociopathic behavior, where she was playing multiple people against each other without any remorse. I asked Chris for the name of the new guy, but he refused to tell me. He just laughed and said, "You'll find out soon enough. Claire's great at causing a spectacle." Now, I'm stuck in a dilemma. I feel like I need to tell Mark what's going on, but I don't know if he'll even believe me at this point. Claire has already convinced everyone that I'm the bad guy, and my parents are so deep in denial that they'd probably blame me for any fallout. I don't want to see Mark get hurt again, but what can I do when no one will listen? Reddit, help me. Do I try to tell Mark the truth about Claire and her tangled web of lies, or do I wash my hands of this mess for good and let them all figure it out on their own? Top comments, /holy spaghetti, Claire is an actual villain. I can't believe how manipulative she is. OP, I think you need to tell Mark, but be prepared for him to side with Claire again. Some people are too blinded by love, or whatever, to see the truth. 2. /Bistanderno1, OP, I've been following this saga, and this is straight out of a soap opera. Claire is going to keep getting away with it until someone shows Mark some cold, hard proof. Chris won't do it, so maybe it has to be you. You're not the villain here, Claire is. Don't let her make you feel otherwise. 3. /Woothmark, if Mark doesn't believe you at this point, there's no helping him. I feel bad for the guy, but Claire is a master manipulator. Maybe Chris is right, let her make her own bed and lie in it. This can't go on forever, right? OP's response to comments, I know, right? I feel like I'm living in some kind of twisted reality where the bad guys keep winning. I hate to think that Mark is going to get burned again, but you're right, he might not believe me. It's so frustrating. 4. /Bistanderno1, I can't believe how deep this has gone. I agree, someone needs to show Mark the proof, but the problem is, I don't have any concrete evidence other than what Chris told me. I wish I had something more solid, because I know Claire will just twist things again if I go to Mark without proof. 5. /Woothmark, that's my fear. Mark's already chosen to forgive her once, and I'm worried he's so deep in it now that he won't see the truth, even if it's right in front of him. Maybe it's time to let things play out, but I don't know if I can sit back and watch it all implode. Update 3, 1 week later. Okay, Reddit, here's the final update. Things have officially exploded, and this time, it's worse than I ever imagined. After reading all your advice and thinking things over, I decided to tell Mark the truth. I couldn't just sit back and watch Claire destroy his life while stringing along multiple men. So, I called Mark and asked if we could meet up for coffee. He was hesitant at first, but agreed. When we met, I laid everything out for him. I told him about Chris, how Claire was still seeing him, and then dropped the bombshell about the third guy. Mark was visibly shaken, but what really broke him was when I mentioned Chris confirming it. He knew Chris, and that seemed to be the final piece he needed. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. Mark wasn't just upset, he was angry. And not just at Claire. He told me that Claire had been spinning this whole narrative about me for weeks, convincing him that I had been jealous of their relationship all along. She had told him that I'd been trying to sabotage her for years, and she even had proof in the form of fake texts she had sent to herself from a burner phone, making it look like I was trying to ruin their relationship. I was stunned. Claire had gone so far as to fabricate evidence to make me look like the bad guy. Mark said that was why he had taken her back, because he believed I was the one trying to manipulate him. After hearing everything I told him, Mark said he needed to confront Claire. I offered to help, but he insisted on doing it alone. That night, I got a message from Mark, "You were right. I'm sorry." Turns out, when Mark confronted Claire, she tried to deny everything, but when he showed her the texts from Chris that I had forwarded to him, she couldn't keep up the lie. Mark left her that night, and the next morning, he filed for an annulment. But it doesn't end there. Claire lost it. She started sending me threatening messages, accusing me of ruining her life and swearing that I'd pay for what I did. I ignored them at first, figuring she was just lashing out because she got caught. But things escalated quickly. She began spamming my phone with calls and texts, and when I blocked her, she started showing up at my work, waiting in the parking lot for me. It was terrifying. I told Mark about it, and he advised me to go to the police. I didn't want to get law enforcement involved, but after Claire keyed my car and left a threatening note on my windshield, I knew I had no choice. I filed for a restraining order against her. Things seemed to calm down for a bit, and I thought maybe the worst was over. But a few days later, I got a call from a mutual friend. Claire had completely spiraled. She tried to confront Mark one last time, showing up at his apartment unannounced, but he refused to even open the door. When he wouldn't let her in, she started screaming and throwing things outside his building, which led to one of his neighbors calling the cops. Claire was arrested for disorderly conduct and spent the night in jail. Mark texted me later to tell me about it. He's cutting all ties with her, and from what I've heard, Chris and the third guy have both blocked her too. She's completely alone now, and as much as part of me feels bad for her, I know she brought this on herself. Mark and I have stayed in touch, though things are still awkward between us. He apologized multiple times for believing Claire's lies about me, and I've accepted his apology, but I don't think our friendship will ever fully recover from this. As for me, I'm doing my best to move on. The restraining order is still in place, and I haven't heard from Claire since her arrest. I hope she gets the help she clearly needs, but I'm just relieved this whole nightmare is finally over. To everyone who gave me advice and encouraged me to tell Mark the truth, thank you. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't taken that step. It's been a roller coaster, but I'm finally free from Claire's toxicity, and I know I made the right choice. Top comments, you/real truth seeker, wow, OP. What a crazy ride. I'm so sorry you had to deal with all of that, but good on you for sticking to your truth and getting out of that mess. Claire sounds dangerous, filing that restraining order was definitely the right move. Stay safe, and I hope you find peace after all this drama. 2. You/note about the drama, this is insane. Claire really went to great lengths to manipulate and control everyone around her. It's so sad, but I'm glad you and Mark are both out of her web. You did the right thing. Hopefully, she'll get the help she needs before causing any more damage to herself or others. 3. You/no more toxicity, wow, I just caught up on all your updates, and I have to say, you handled this better than most people would. Standing up for yourself and Mark, despite all the lies and drama, shows a lot of strength. Here's hoping for smoother days ahead for you. OP's response, thank you all for your kind words. It's been a rough few weeks, but I'm glad I finally told Mark the truth, even though the fallout was intense. I'm hoping Claire gets some help too, she clearly has some serious issues. For now, I'm focusing on myself and my mental health. I really hope this is the last update, as I can't really see myself dealing with this drama any longer. The support from this community has been a huge help, and I really appreciate everyone's advice along the way. That's the end of this story. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button if you enjoyed this generated story. Head over to my profile if you want to listen to more stories like this one. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time.